Welcome to another episode of Hope for Samson. We're so excited that you have joined us today. We're going to be talking you through how to buy a car in a pandemic.
Okay, so car buying can be one of the most stressful things that you do.
I hate it.
Right?
I absolutely hate it.
'Cause think about the dynamic of car buying. Like, you may buy a car maybe once every 3 or 4 years, maybe at best once every couple of years. The people you're buying a car from typically are selling a car like once a day, you know?
Even more than that,
more than
cases.
that, right? And so they're much more well-versed in selling you the car than you are buying the car. And so it is intimidating to walk in because they know all the tips and tricks of the
terminology.
trade. Yeah. And you're walking in thinking, man, I'm going to try to get a deal.
They have a lot more leverage in the community, and they understand the terminology, the lingo so much more. And things have changed probably since you bought a car, since it's been 4 or 5 years. And so you're walking into this situation not really knowing what you're walking into, and they really do have that advantage over you.
Yeah. And so that's complicated in and of itself. It's intimidating. But then I also think we as Americans love cars.
We do.
And we love buying cars. And as we're talking about financial peace and having financial freedom, what that looks like, you know, one of the things I think that I've heard somebody say that the quickest way to get poor is to buy a car. Because it is one of those things that we lock up so much of our finances in. And we don't ever experience true financial freedom because we're focused on that shiny thing with wheels on it that really just gets us from point A to point B.
Right. So we want to talk you through a couple of things. Number one, how to buy a car in a pandemic. Number one, don't, unless you absolutely have to. It's like the absolutely worst time right now to buy a car, y'all. We actually this last year had to. And so we want to walk you through what our experience was and hopefully give you some tips and pointers along the way.
Yeah. So the big thing I would say about why not to is because cars, no matter how much you or how unemotional or emotionally detached you are as a person, cars are an emotional decision. Buying a car is an emotional decision, and you get emotionally invested in a car the more you're financially invested in a car. So let me give you an example. The other night, I was driving back from church, and on my way, the person driving 3 or 4 car lengths ahead of me was like this big truck, had a bunch of stuff in the back, and this giant can fell out of the back of their truck.
Like a paint can?
I don't know what to describe. It's like a canister type thing. Fell out of the back of their truck.
Like a bucket?
Maybe a bucket. It would happen so quick, okay? Gosh. You got any other more examples?
Like a barrel?
Like a barrel. Something.
I'm just trying to picture, okay.
Something fell out of the back of the car. It was canister of some sort.
Okay.
Came and hit my car.
Like the hood of it?
Like the bumper of it.
Oh my goodness.
And it made this huge noise and like shocked me for a second. And then I just kept driving because my car is a 2008 beat up, basically bumper car. I have parts of it duct taped together. There's some legitimate things that are, the bumper's actually zip tied on.
Like, here's a really good snapshot of Samson's car right now. It's 2008. It's got, 250,000 miles on it? Yeah. And I am too afraid to take it through one of those drive-through car washes because I really do feel like one of those sponges is just going to hook onto the bumper and rip it off. Like, that's how bad it is right now.
Yeah. So it's about 18 months since I've had a car wash. So granted, when this thing comes and hits me, I just roll on like it's no big deal. Listen, if I was driving a brand new car, you know what I would do? I would speed up, look and get the license plate of this dude. I would at least pull over and see what the damage is. Like, I would be pretty invested in that situation.
Thinking through the whole process at night. Like, what?
Yeah.
How did that happen? Was that a bucket? Was that a can?
This?
Was it a barrel?
Was that Donkey Kong throwing stuff at the back of their car? I don't know what was happening.
What happened? But you slept like a baby that night.
I slept fine because it's just another ding on a car with a bunch of dings. Mm-hmm. And so because I'm not as invested in this car, neither am I emotionally invested in this car. And so I think that's another reason, as you're thinking of why not to buy a car, is that if you don't really need one, and you got a car that gets you from point A to point B, even if it's a clunker, you know what? Keep driving it.
So let's go ahead and consider some facts going into car buying today. So due to limited space in factories in 2019, less cars, less computer chips were being produced. There was also a shift from public transport to private transport, and that was due to exposure to COVID. In 2021 of June, prices for used cars and used trucks were up 45% from a year earlier. That pace has slowed somewhat since, but in August, used car and truck prices were still up 32% from a year before that. So we are dealing with quite a drastic increase in prices, and that is why our primary advice is don't buy a car right now unless you absolutely have to. Like, a car was wrecked or it's just been on its last limb for the last 4 years. Like, unless you're incredibly desperate, don't go out and buy a car right now. That's coming from somebody that just went out and bought a car. So
that's right. Because our car was totaled.
Because our car was totaled.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So number 2, as you're thinking through how to buy a car during the pandemic, number 2 is this: always pay cash.
Mm-hmm. This is really important, y'all. And so there was a study done about millionaires and how they spend their money. And on average, the millionaire drives a car that is 3 years old, and they paid cash for it.
Wow.
So, I mean, if you're going out and you're thinking, hey, I really just need a brand new car. I've got a 2016, but it doesn't really have all the bells and whistles. I really want you to be introspective and ask yourself why you feel like this is a good idea when somebody's making 10 times your income doesn't indulge that much. Is that too harsh?
No, I don't think it is.
Okay. But a lot of people in our generation and in this moment in history really do feel like every time a new model comes out, every time there's a new, fancy bell or a fancy whistle on a car, maker, model, they feel the urge to go out and buy that.
Yeah. And restricting yourself to saying, you know what, I'm only going to buy a car within my price range, within the amount of actual liquid cash that I have at this moment, or that I've been saving up to get, that really does narrow the kind of cars that you purchase. And it also makes that decision a little bit more heavy, because a lot of times when you go to a car lot, what do? They're like, tell me, what monthly payment you're looking for.
That's right.
Right? Doesn't matter what the price of the car is, right? And they're always if you look at it, this is what they do. They always give you a monthly payment that is slightly higher than where you would want to be, because they're trying to squeeze that little extra out of you, because that's how they work. And so when you go in and you're willing to pay cash, the reality is you already know your limits.
Yes.
Right? You're not going to push it because you know exactly what you saved up, or you know exactly what liquid cash you set aside to purchase that car. And it gives you a lot of buying power, because you know exactly what kind of car you're going to get. In fact, this summer when our previous car was totaled, we actually had to go and purchase a car.
Painful.
Yeah, we had to pay cash. And we never enjoy buying a car. It's never an emotionally fun decision. There's some people, some of y'all, you like buying cars too much.
You're weird.
Yeah.
It's a stressful situation.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine. I wasn't even planning on this. I remember he was telling me he took his car, his BMW, to get in. He just bought this car to get the tires changed. And to put new tires is going to be like $1,000. So what did he do? He went, traded in, and bought a truck. And I was like, I don't think you realize how cars work. Like, when it's time for new tires, doesn't mean new tires on a new car. That's not how that works.
Oh, boy.
But because he was looking at monthly payments, he's like, you know what? It's actually cheaper for me monthly to just go get a new car, new payments, and not have to pay $1,000 out of pocket for tires. That's crazy. But that's how people make car decisions.
Yeah, you feel like you can't afford that monthly payment today. So what happens tomorrow? Or 3 years from now when you still haven't paid the car off? Because the average loan term on a new vehicle for April of 2021 is 73 months. Used car, 68 months. Yep. You're signing up for a monthly financial decision for the next 73 months. You know what your snapshot finances are going to look like that far in advance? Nobody knows that. Something could happen tomorrow and you could be out of a job. Something could happen a year from now and you could have a baby. Something could happen 2 years from now and you or your spouse could be really sick. So you're really making decisions today that are going to carry out for the next 5-6 years of your life that you really have no way to quantify or predict.
Yeah. You know, and right now with financing, people also roll in negative equity. So they have leftover payments on a previous car that they're trading in. So they roll that in. So they're actually owing more on a car that's worth less. They're upside down. That's what that means. You're upside down on a car because you just want to get that new car. And I know sometimes you need a new car or you need a different car.
New to you car.
New to you car. But I think in all of those instances, there's smart ways of doing it. You know, keeping emotions out of it is the best thing. We're not always the best examples of that.
No, we're not.
So tell about what happened.
Gosh, should we tell on ourselves? There's so many ways that we can tell on ourselves. Often when we give advice, it's because we've done something stupid. I remember, one of the things we like to talk about is not buying too much car. So a lot of single people or newly married people want to go out and buy what? An SUV. Why? I want to take a road trip occasionally. That's usually their answer, you know, or like, what if in a couple years I'm going to have kids? So you're paying what, an extra $20,000 versus a sedan because you occasionally might want to go on a road trip and you want to have somewhere to put your luggage, and you might,
or same applies to the guys that want to go off-roading, right?
You might maybe want to have a kid in 3 to 5 years. Odds are you're not going to be driving that same vehicle in 3 to 5 years. How do we know that, Samson? How many vehicles have we been through in the last 3 years?
In the last 3 years, we've owned 3 different SUVs.
And they were all totally unpredictable situations, right? Like you can't plan to have your car totaled. You don't plan for these things, but they just happen. Yeah. And so
For the record, hold on. Hope has totaled 2 different SUVs in the last 2 years.
I have not.
Okay, at least one of those 2. Somebody else was driving the car the last time.
The engine blew up.
Here's the engine.
That is not fair. The engine blew up while I was driving it. I didn't run into somebody. Yeah. Jeez.
Total losses.
Throw me under the SUV, why don't you? Yeah. I don't remember what I was saying.
No, so the reality is we've made our share of mistakes.
Yes, we had a couple. That's where I was going. Yeah. We had a couple sit us down when we were fixing to have Charlie and be like, look, you guys really don't need to rush out and buy an SUV. And whereas, as you know, new parents thinking, oh, well, we need somewhere to put the stroller and the backpack and all the baby things. Like, we have to have an SUV to have one child, right? And they were really gently and gracefully trying to give us some really solid advice. And what did we do?
I remember the exact words, by the way. They said, a baby can fit in a Corolla.
And they were right. Kristen and Rodney Hefty were right. And I know that this is going to come off sounding like a lot of you are just going to, you know, brush off this advice and be like, well, we need an SUV. But the truth is you really don't. You know, like you can fit 2 kids in a sedan, and we do right now in Samson's car all the time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So last off, when you're buying a car, if you're having to absolutely buy a car in the middle of this pandemic, do your research.
Yes. There's a really great website called carcomplaints.com. And it's just this whole database of different ways that you can look at not just the make and the model of your vehicle, but the year specifically.
Yeah. So this is how cool this website is. Like, let's say as you're looking for a new to you car, a used car within your price range, let's say you know it's a Honda Accord from 2015. You can actually go and type that exact thing into carcomplaints.com, and it will list out every known issue of that car from that specific model year, right? And so these are regular people notifying this website on specific complaints. I remember we were looking at a car, the specific model and year of that car, that particular year model had a headlight issue. And this headlight issue wasn't like a normal, like you go out there and buy like a $10 light bulb or whatever and fix it yourself. This was like you had to take it to the dealership, pay hundreds of dollars for the dealership to go in, change up a wire. It was a big headache, and it was a known issue. And so if you're going to buy this car, you need to make sure before you buy that car to go look at that headlight. Right? That's what this website does for you. And so it's a great tool when you're looking at buying a car. Go to car complaints. No sort of, what is it called? Sponsorship or anything here. I think it's like a Wikipedia type site. It's just for free. Everyone shares that information. So absolutely great tool to use when you're buying a car.
It's great. Another bit of advice that we would give is consult a mechanic. If you have a friend that's a mechanic, or if you even want to ask the dealership, hey, can I drive this to my mechanic and have them check it out? Most of the time, if they know that you're really serious about purchasing the car, the dealership will be like, yeah, no problem, take it over. Now,
if they say no, that should be a red flag.
Our advice is to not do that. Yeah. That would be our advice. So yeah, we have a really good friend actually that's a mechanic. His name is Joshua, and I remember this when we were purchasing the Subaru. We called him and we're like, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? And he gave us some good pointers. And then he finished up that conversation and said, here's the thing though, do not be married to that car until it's in your garage. What does that mean? It means sometimes you just have it in your head, like this is the one that I want no matter what. And so when you go into a negotiating scene like that, they have so much leverage over you because they can see that you've already made the decision, and it doesn't really matter what they put on the table or take from the table. You're already going to buy the car, right? So he gave us the advice, don't be married to the car until it's in your garage.
I'll never forget this. We were driving last year to go buy this car, the Subaru Outback. And so we're driving, Hope says, or Joshua tells us, hey, don't be married to this car. And I thought what you said was really cute back to him, babe. What did you say?
I'm barely sliding into this car's DMs. Like, we're not even on talking basis, barely. Like, I'm
Isn't
not
my
married.
wife so witty?
I'm not married at all to it. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Just your greatest power is the ability to walk away from a deal that you don't like. They want to sell you that car way more than you need to buy it. So.
Yes. Another great tool, obviously, other than like getting a Carfax from the dealer when you go there, is actually you can go out there, you can Google this, just Google checklist, used car buying checklist. It'll actually give you a list of a bunch of things you should look on a used car. And
for those of us that are not mechanically inclined,
oh, absolutely.
Like I have no idea what I would be looking for, and it really does. These lists do detailed, instructions. Okay, like look at the tire from this angle, or get under the car and look for rust in this area, or just really, really specific things that you really would have no idea how to look for, were you not otherwise educated. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I didn't know anything about. And like, if I ever get stranded on the side of the road and have to open up my hood and I'm standing there, if you ever see me outside, just know I have no idea what I'm doing or even what I'm looking at. I'm just pretending at that point.
We're on the phone with Joshua.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're doing.
We're like, I married the car, Joshua. Help.
But what these kind of tools help is it'll say, hey, if you see like a white, substance when you open up the oil, what is it called? The oil canister thing. I don't know. Right? Like then that's a problem. Walk away. Or if you see rust underneath the car, walk away. Or if you turn on the car and this white puff of thing comes out of the exhaust, walk away. Like that's what this does. And so it's really helpful for when you're just kind of like a layman and you're not an expert on cars. And so you can find a lot of those online. Just Google used car checklist before you buy a car. Yep.
That about sums up this video. So if you guys have had trouble purchasing a car in the last year, or if you're running into trouble, go ahead and comment in our comment section. We really want to hear from you. We enjoyed talking to you all about it. Can't wait to catch you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching that video with us, guys. We really appreciate you, and we want to be here for a resource for you. So please feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have.
Also, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that little notification bell so you can stay up to date.